That's when I heard the girl scream from inside the car. As I glanced up, there were 3 figures at the opposite side of the bridge, back where we came from behind us. 2 of them seemed to be pacing back and forth, but the one in the center was just standing there. In my mind at the time, I thought they were just teenagers hanging out on the bridge looking for some people to freak out. So I yelled at them to get a life and return to working on my car. They didn't go away. These 3 real encounters with shadow people will terrify you. Sometimes you see or hear things that can't be explained. Shapes in the corner of your bedroom, voices in the hallway. Could there be an explanation for these sightings? Is it just your imagination playing tricks on you? Or is it something else? Something a little more tangible. Let's take a look at 3 real user-submitted encounters with shadow people. It was a quiet evening, and I was cycling home after a late shift. I always liked this time because it gave me some time to decompress and be on my own after a long, busy day at work. To save time, I often cut through the park instead of taking the long road. I would rarely run into other people in the park because of the late hour, which suited me fine. I appreciated the solitude. One night, as I entered the park, I noticed an unusual lack of light. It looked like some of the lamps had malfunctioned, which happens from time to time. Nevertheless, it didn't bother me much since my bike was equipped with a small headlight, and I knew the park layout like the back of my hand. While riding, I heard a noise from behind me. Glancing back, I spotted someone on a bicycle, swiftly approaching me. This was the first time I had seen another cyclist in the park at this hour, and for some reason, I got nervous. I glanced back and tried to get a good look at the rider, but all I could make out was the general shape of his body and the bike itself. I could hear the wheels turning and clicking behind me as I pedaled forward. There was something about him that just didn't feel right. I couldn't explain it, but I had this sense of dread wash over me, a chill that just wouldn't go away. When I turned right, he would turn right. When I sped up, he would speed up. The shadow cyclist mirrored my movements. About halfway through the park, I heard his wheels speed up. He was getting closer. I chanced to look behind me and finally got a look at his face. It was still hidden in shadow, but I got a good look at his eyes. We made eye contact, and I know it sounds crazy, but it felt as though I was frozen there in that moment. He was smiling back at me with a weird grin. I freaked out and pedaled as fast as I could, without a second glance. Remembering a nearby police station, I raced there as fast as I could. Once I got there, I glanced back and saw that he was no longer following me. I informed the police about the incident, and they escorted me home and searched the park. They didn't find him. I don't know who he was or what he wanted, but I never went home through that park again, and I never will. When I was in college, I needed some money for the summer, so I got a job cleaning up a big sports arena. I don't really want to name it, but it's a major one on the East Coast. It was in a different city than I lived in, so I'd have to ride the train to and from work, and the hours were late. But that was fine with me because it paid well. There were a few of us that would clean at night after an event, but the arena was so big we would hardly see each other once we got started. One night, I was in the back cleaning the kitchen area of one of the concession stands when I heard footsteps outside. I stopped mopping and called out, thinking I would hear one of my coworkers answer back. It was just silent. So I just went back to mopping. About a minute later, I heard tapping on the large metal gate that pulls down over the concession stand window after it's closed. It was a high, metallic pinking sound. It happened like 3 or 4 times before I walked out and looked on the breezeway, but saw no one there. Now, in a large arena like this, strange sounds are not that unusual, so I just went back to work. I'm not that superstitious of a person, and I've never believed in anything really paranormal. I just chalked it up to being the wind or something like that. Around 3 a.m., I was wrapping up my night by cleaning up the trash in the stands when I saw it for the first time. I had the feeling that I was being watched. We've all had that feeling before. It's hard to explain or put into words. You just know someone is looking at you. I looked up and saw the figure standing perfectly still, about 3 sections up and to the right of me. It was just standing there. It took me a minute to process what I was looking at. I was running down all the options of what it could be in my mind as I stared at it. Then it moved. It just turned and walked back into the breezeway. I ran up after it. It was not unheard of for people to sneak into the field after hours, so I grabbed the radio and called it into security. But by the time we got up there, whatever it was gone. When I explained what I saw, they kind of just laughed it off and told me it happens all the time and not to worry about it. I continued to work there for the rest of the summer. I saw the figure 3 more times before my last day. I don't know what it was, and I can't explain it, but whatever it is, it's still there. I hear from my old coworkers from time to time, and they tell me it's still being seen late at night, standing by itself in the shadows. I work as an Uber driver on the weekends to make a little more cash. It's not full-time, but it helps pay the bills at the end of the month. I live right on the edge of the city, so sometimes I get fares that take me into the country, just outside of the city limits. This one night, I picked up these 3 girls from a party and was taking them home out in the middle of nowhere. It was after 2 a.m., and they were drunk at the time and rowdy. Just outside of town, there's this large steel strut bridge, one of those big bridges that were the product of the 1930 work projects from the Great Depression. That bridge has always been rumored to be haunted, and because of this, it's kind of become a place where teenagers hang out, drink, and dare themselves to do stupid stuff. I tried to avoid it most of the time, but couldn't that night. The girls in the back were laughing and singing when we came up on the bridge. About halfway over the bridge, my car died. The engine, electrical, everything just shut off. We coasted to a stop under one of those orange halogen lights that half lit up the bridge. The girls, of course, are screaming and freaking out at this point. I get out and pop the hood to make sure the battery connections weren't loose or anything like that. That's when I heard the girl scream from inside the car. As I glanced up, there were 3 figures at the opposite side of the bridge, back where we came from behind us. 2 of them seemed to be pacing back and forth, but the one in the center was just standing there. In my mind at the time, I thought they were just teenagers hanging out on the bridge looking for some people to freak out, so I yelled at them to get a life and return to working on my car. They didn't go away. They never got closer, but I could still see them when I slammed down my hood. I got back in the car, and after a few minutes, the car just started back up. By this time, I noticed that the girls in the back were strangely quiet. They were just sitting in the back looking forward, not talking. It looked like they had seen something, but when I asked them about it, they just didn't answer me. I took the opportunity to get off that bridge as quickly as I could. I could still see the 3 figures in the rearview mirror on the other end of the bridge as I pulled away. The girls were silent the whole way back to their house on that drive. They tipped me well, but never said a word to me. I made sure that they got inside all right, and then I drove 45 minutes out of my way to avoid that bridge again. Every now and then I hear someone talk about the strange things that they have experienced on that bridge, and I think about that night. I don't know why my car stopped. I don't know what those girls saw, and I don't know what those shapes were. But one thing is for sure, I'm never going on that bridge again. Have you seen them? Shadowy figures in the night? Let me know your stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, this is Broadcaster 7 asking, are you receiving the night signal?
Okay.